This is KGW News at Sunrise.
Coming up next, COVID in our classrooms. Several schools are dealing with outbreaks, sending hundreds of students home to isolate. We'll update you on the current conditions and what some schools are doing to keep parents informed.
We're also covering one of the most common reasons given for not getting a COVID shot: religious exemptions. Local law professor shares his take on how religious exemptions would hold up in the court of law. Plus,
making history en route to the final frontier, SpaceX sending its first all-civilian crew into orbit. We'll tell you what they're going to be doing on this 3-day mission.
Brenda Braxton.
I mean, they're all civilians? Isn't anybody a pilot on board?
The billionaire who paid for it is a pilot, yes.
Okay, because I'm like, is anybody a pilot?
Should we focus on this story right now, or should we get to the weather? Because at the start of the 4:30 half hour, Rod came out with these words: big change in my rain forecast.
So, yesterday we were talking about the last 2 days, actually, that Friday was the big question mark. The rain might hold off. And now it looks like it will. So if you have plans tomorrow afternoon, you're going to be A-OK. Let's get you going out the door this morning. And the word is chilly. Look at that. 39 out in Sandy. Everybody's at least in the 40s, right? 40 out in Hillsboro. Estacada now 37. McMinnville 39 degrees. So one of the cooler mornings we had. It is clear out there. It's going to be a beautiful day. But a chilly start at the bus stop definitely warrants a jacket or sweater or something. We'll say mid-40s on average here in Portland when the kids are standing outside waiting for the big yellow to come. And then sunshine, 65 degrees at noon, and there's that warm afternoon finish at 3 p.m., 75 degrees. We'll talk more about the rain coming up shortly.
We'll see you then. Thank you, Rod. Well, COVID cases are forcing all students in 2 local schools to stay home. Let's talk about the first one real quick. We just learned that Reynolds High School is moving to distance learning for at least a week because they have so many students in quarantine. The district says the number of students and staff who've tested positive for COVID is small, but a lot of kids are out for possible exposure. So here's the plan. School is closed for the next 2 days to allow teachers to get their plans in place. All students will be learning at home next week with the goal of returning to campus on September 27th. And there's more. The district is asking parents to voluntarily provide their child's vaccine status. Vaccinated kids may not have to quarantine if they're exposed to COVID in the future. Reynolds also says it will not allow spectators at sporting events until further notice.
There's a similar situation right now at an elementary school in Gladstone. A letter to parents from the superintendent says all kids at John Wetton Elementary have to stay home until September 27th. A vaccinated staff member tested positive for COVID there, and because they were around so many students, the district decided to quarantine all students in 1st through 5th grades. So that's more than 600 kids altogether. The school says they're still trying to work a plan in place, or to get a plan in place, that is, for distance learning next week. Meanwhile, some districts are now putting COVID exposure info online for parents. Portland Public Schools started a dashboard this week. Data from the start of school shows 140 students have been isolated. That means they either tested positive or were presumed positive for COVID. The dashboard also shows more than 300 students who are in quarantine because they may have been exposed outside of school, another 300 who were exposed at school. It's unclear still why there's no data in place for staff. And while we have heard from several students, parents, and teachers who are worried about cases in schools, we also spoke to one mom who says she's not concerned yet.
I'm not overly concerned given that we're a district of 50,000 students. 300 students is a very low percentage.
We spoke to a couple of doctors right at the start of this school year, and they say it's absolutely realistic to expect more COVID cases to pop up here in the early months of the school year.
Okay, when it comes to COVID vaccines, not everybody wants to get them. They have a lot of different reasons for that, but health officials say many of those exemptions just are not legit.
So with that in mind, KGW's Catherine Cook talked with a local law professor about religious exemptions and how they may or may not hold up.
A growing number of people are claiming religious reasons to dodge COVID vaccine mandates. In Washington, thousands of state workers are doing it. And in Los Angeles, some 2,600 police department employees are citing religion to avoid the shot. So, is religion just a loophole here?
First of all, the legal landscape is very complicated.
To learn more, we talked with Lewis and Clark Law School professor Jim Olesky. First, some interesting background. Olesky says before these vaccine mandates, most religious exemption claims came up behind bars.
This often comes up in prison litigation cases where, say someone who's never been a practicing Jewish person in the past suddenly says they want kosher meals. Well, the court has to decide, did they really convert to Judaism, or are they asking for the kosher meals because the kosher meal is coming into the prison from the outside and other prisoners aren't, handling it?
Where religion is concerned, Olesky says the same question applies to vaccine exemptions. Are the beliefs behind them sincere?
Traditionally, courts are very reluctant to second guess religious claims, but they do test sincerity.
Employers could test sincerity by comparing religious claims with what an employee might post on social media.
That's one way of proving it, is people have actually said their real basis, and then they come in and they say it's about religion.
And while it's one thing to question the sincerity of one's religious claims, Olesky says it's another thing entirely to suggest they're unreasonable.
When it gets to court, they're going to be in a lot of trouble because courts are going to say it was illegitimate, especially if it's a government employer, to be engaging in questioning the reasonableness of a particular religious belief.
So where does that leave us? First of all, Olesky believes under current Supreme Court precedent, vaccine mandates hold up. And he says even traditional supporters of religious exemptions may view things differently through the lens of a global pandemic.
If your religion believes in human sacrifice, you don't have a right to kill people and be exempt from the homicide laws. Likewise, many of these people would say, yes, I believe there's religious exemption rights to most laws, but when it's a deadly pandemic, you don't have an exemption from the vaccination requirement.
Catherine Cook, KGW News.
As Portland struggles to get thousands of homeless people off the streets, it's moving one camp in Southeast that houses dozens of people. It's called Queer Affinity Village, and the city opened it last year. It gave more than 30 people in the LGBTQ community somewhere safe to live during the pandemic. The village sits at Southeast Main and Water Avenue on city-owned property. The problem is Portland signed a deal a long time ago to let a developer turn this land into office buildings. And as the Portland Tribune first reported, that work is supposed to start soon. Now officials are scrambling to find Queer Affinity a new home, hopefully by the end of this month.
There is some time there. They are not looking to kick off the village that is on that property on October 1st. They want to work and make sure the relocation process can happen. When those sites were developed, last spring, we didn't think COVID would still be with us like it is now, the Delta variant, all the cases we're still seeing. So it's real, we're still here.
Portland is also finalizing details to open 6 other sites where the homeless can camp legally. They're called Safe Rest Villages. We should find out soon exactly where those are going to be located. Housing Commissioner Dan Ryan says his office plans to make an announcement next week, and he hopes to have the camps open by the end of the year.
There's another local story for you this morning. 2 bats with rabies were found in the Portland metro area just in the last couple of weeks. So the first bat was discovered in Washington County last week. It was inside someone's home. And then the second bat was found in the Grant Park neighborhood of Northeast Portland this week. A family in that neighborhood found the bat in their backyard after they say they spotted their dog playing with it. So now that dog's in quarantine. They say it will be okay and no people were exposed, but this is definitely a good reminder to make sure that your own pets are up to date on their rabies shots. We also spoke with the Multnomah County Health Office to find out what people should do if they do encounter a sick bat.
One of the most important things is do not handle it with your bare hands. The way that rabies is spread is through contact with saliva or brain tissue from an animal that has it. And so that's why biting is how it's spread, because it's in the saliva.
Multnomah and Washington counties both tell us that people should give them a call if they do find a bat with rabies.
Okay, this next story is great because Oregon is helping dozens of animals that were displaced during Hurricane Ida. The cats and dogs rescued from shelters in Louisiana have now arrived in Bend. The Humane Society of Central Oregon will now get them ready for adoption.
So the animals that we're receiving are animals that have been sitting in the shelters or have been owner released. These are not animals that were just lost in the storm and there may be an owner looking for them.
So the pets may be available for adoption in just a few days. We'll certainly keep you posted. Right now, we want to head back to the Weather Center and check in with Rod. It's a chilly start to the day.
It is, in fact, upper 30s. Estacada, good morning. McMinnville, good morning. Sandy, good morning. So there are some cold spots out there. Today, by the way, goes on to be sunny and in the 70s and gorgeous. Let's talk about what you're really likely wondering about, and that's the weekend rain. Here's the first wave of rain sitting offshore, and I said to start the show, it does now appear that the rain will hold off until Friday overnight, which means your Saturday daytime plans here in the valley up and down I-5 are all good. This is Futurecast at 1:30 tomorrow. A day that sees increasing cloudiness and certainly the possibility of some afternoon showers into the evening popping along the coast. This would show anything there would be light, but we're still dry mid-evening at 8:30 up and down I-5, and I believe this is true. In fact, you can easily make the case, and this is what Futurecast shows, that we don't really get any rain until midnight or after tomorrow night here in Portland, Vancouver, and Salem. But this is absolutely pockets of heavy rain overnight tomorrow night coming in with the main front moving through the area, and then a steady rain with still some moderate rain pockets coming down early Saturday morning. And then there's another front, remember, that picks up the rain Saturday overnight into Sunday morning. So really the two wettest periods would be early Saturday and again early Sunday. How much rain? Well, just what falls Friday overnight into Saturday. This shows Portland and Salem each potentially around an inch. And then you double those amounts going through Sunday. Could we get 2 inches of rain, really? Saturday, at least 6/10 to maybe an inch. Sunday, at least nearing a half of an inch to an inch. Heaviest rains I mentioned will be falling each morning. Here are your early morning numbers on the board. 41 now up in Kelso, 39 over in Bend. It is a chilly start. 40s at the coast, an indication of the clear skies they have. 77 today, enjoy. Tomorrow stays dry, 75. The wet weekend, a dry start to next week. Your Friday plans are a go.
All right, Rod, keep that excitement going here for the next hour, 45 minutes. What do you say? Still plenty of sunrise to go, but these are the stories we're covering next. One is about art. For students, by students. We'll take a look at the revamped Montgomery Plaza on the PSU campus. And we're also talking about this as we see more COVID cases popping up in local schools. Our Verify teams look into the treatment options if your child does test positive. Again, that's coming up right after this break.